everyone. I'm Jordana Van of Raven Light Holistic Healing, and welcome to the Astrological and Emotional Whys behind the coronavirus and what you're supposed to be doing just now. This is really just an auditory version of the post I put on Facebook. The one that I wrote is very, very long. I know that some of you guys prefer to hear me talk to you about it than to read it, although as half of you are home in your jammies, what else are you doing with your time? Anyway, this is very casual. I've got a cat in one corner who's probably going to start complaining that he would like his next meal. My husband is over in the other corner in our office working, so you'll hear keys clicking. You might hear him talking for a minute. So I just figured, since like you guys, I'm home, I might as well do this for you. So first, some common sense. If you are seriously ill, call your doctor. The information that follows is intended for those of you who are not sick, those who are sick but for whom the symptoms are not life-threatening, and those who are very sick but who are already receiving care from a physician. It is not intended to take the place of an urgent life-saving intervention. Second, again, as I mentioned, this is a long video, and yet there is so much more I could have said. I really decided to limit my scope to the way in which the virus is affecting us as individuals and what we as individuals are supposed to be doing for ourselves at this time. But there's a global piece here as well that I could not in good conscience not mention. And that is that numerologically, COVID-19 is about compassion on a global scale and accomplishing this through isolation. This is why, if you look at the Facebook artwork, I chose bear as the featured artwork. Look at how we are showing compassion for our most vulnerable populations and for our medical professionals by staying home. As our mascot of hibernation, a big bear hug for the world seemed about right. Second, there has already been an observed positive healing benefit for Mother Earth. The air and water is cleaner in many locations, no longer being trafficked by humans. This is about the physical planet on which we live as well. Lastly, my dear Capricorns, I am not calling you guys out. This isn't about you personally. It's about the pure, undiluted energies of your sun sign, which are mitigated by about 1,000 other astrological factors in your individual astrological chart. So, those of you who followed my work for several years probably recall me saying on multiple occasions that situations of uncommon stress were going to continue until 2021, at which point the pendulum would begin to swing the other way, bringing concrete steps in the direction of increasing emotional relief and positive global change. Most of my clients have heard me say that I expected 2020 to bring a great deal of death from illness and from suicide. While I did not foresee a pandemic specifically, when the coronavirus first began making its appearance, it didn't surprise me at all, as the symptoms align exactly with the emotional experiences the vast majority of my clients are reporting at this time. And more, these emotional experiences align with our astrological climate. To understand the coronavirus, it helps to understand two of the driving astrological forces at this time. Those gosh darned occultations of Pluto and Saturn every time the moon moved through Capricorn all last year and at the beginning of this one, and the present placement of 4 planets, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, and Pluto in, you guessed it, Capricorn. You guys have heard me talk about the influence of Capricorn over and over and over the past year, and for good reason. Though there's a lot of intense stuff happening astrologically at this time, the Capricorn-related aspects are some of the most significant. On a monthly basis last year, the moon moved through Capricorn and briefly eclipsed Saturn and Pluto, slamming us with Capricornian energies funneled through the lens of these two demanding planets. Saturn is not a warm and fuzzy astral body, nor is Pluto. The first mandates faith in times of intense, seemingly unending trial, and the other calls us to look unflinchingly into our shadow and take terrifying risks in the name of living rather than just existing. Pluto asks us to transform, to literally become something new. Now, it takes time for a global event like a pandemic to build, to hit the tipping point from emotion to manifestation. And after being repeatedly pummeled by these energies, well, here we are. I want to stress again, this didn't just come out of the blue. When the virus officially became a thing, any astrologer worth their salt snorted, shook their head, and went, oh, so that's how those energies have decided to shift into reality. Interesting. Capricorn has been influencing our thoughts and feelings directly. and thoughts and feelings have a huge influence on reality. So let's talk about exactly what those Capricornian energies look like and precisely how they're creating the emotional conditions at the root of the coronavirus. So Capricorn is the mascot for tradition, for doing it the way it has always been done. It is the tireless worker, and it is the martyr. And Capricorn sticks to the right way of doing things, working long, exhausting hours because it believes that this is how you are supposed to do it, even if less demanding solutions have already presented themselves. Capricorn can sacrifice like nobody's business, and in fact, it tends to believe that sacrifice is the name of the game, that anything that comes easily is somehow less than or lazy. Capricorn will create a situation of sacrifice where none exists and then be massively unhappy when no one says, "Why, thank you for all the blood, sweat, and tears that you shed on our behalf." Capricorn's attachment to tradition, to things being done the way they've long been done, extends beyond the role one plays in the workplace to the roles people play as individuals and in society. Old school Capricorn energy is all about traditional marriage and traditional family values. There are right and wrong ways to be as a person, and a long, long list of sins that must be avoided. Capricorn has a hefty puritanical streak, and woe the son or daughter who refuses to play the role they've been raised to fulfill. To say that Capricorn excels at guilt-mongering would be a vast understatement. Capricorn also has a bone-deep need to be respected. It feels most at home wearing the mantle of responsibility, being the person that others look to for direction. It craves the control and the power and financial status that comes from being the authority figure. If you believe that you know how things should be done, but you can't get others to go along with this, there's going to be some serious cognitive dissonance happening inside of you. Here you're wired to believe that respect is critical to your well-being and that others should follow your lead, and instead people are absolutely refusing to see things your way or appreciate your efforts. Which is why Capricorn gets majorly hung up on all the ways that other people are not doing their darn jobs or not living the right way. And they will ruminate about this endlessly. In relationships, Capricorn can be extremely domineering because their minds tell them that their way is the right way and the safe way. Remember, these guys have a real fear of something bad happening to them if they don't follow the rules or avoid sins. Even the appearance of evil must be avoided. As an extension of themselves, people in relationships with Capricorn, whether you're a romantic partner, business associate, son, daughter, brother, sister, or member of the same social group, are strongly encouraged, lectured, to behave the right way. These are the reasons that the coronavirus is impacting the elderly to the greatest degree. The two symptoms of the coronavirus that are considered to be the most life-threatening are an extremely high fever and a shortness of breath leading to pneumonia. In emotional terms, fever is what happens when we are angry. We are burning up with rage and with helplessness. Many of our older generation are deeply unhappy about the way things have been changing over the past few years. Fewer people are adhering to the traditional religious values that have formed the backbone of their moral code. And as a globe, we are becoming more supportive of lifestyles that traditional religious dogma condemns. There's a lot of focus on a younger generation frequently perceived as lazy or not understanding the value of hard work. They've just been handed everything, spoiled. This is not so different from how older generations always tend to perceive the young. But remember, now we've got Capricorn breathing down our necks, telling us again and again and again that our sacred traditions and values are being attacked. If our views are on the other side of the scale, if we come from more traditionally liberal stock, for example, we're likely to see things from the opposite perspective, focusing on things like the potential reversal of Roe versus Wade, the apparent war against immigrants, the seemingly unlimited and expanding power of the 1%. Again, our values are being severely challenged, and we don't feel like there's anything we can do about it. 2, it is the lamentable plight of many folks in nursing homes or with significant physical ailments viewed as being concurrent with age, that they often feel as though they are no longer deserving of respect. Where once they would have been the ones people looked to for direction, now they're being told what to do. They have to rely on others, where once others would have relied upon them. They are burdens rather than pillars of wisdom. And when they tell their stories, they often have the sense that others are simply humoring them rather than genuinely interested. This is, of course, assuming there is anyone visiting them. Imagine that you are already feeling rather worthless, as though you no longer have any real value in society. And now there's a voice in your head harping on this fact day in and day out. You have lost the respect of others. You have lost control of your life. This is awful, and there is no way to fix it. And that's where the breathing difficulties come in. When we perceive an untenable situation as going on and on, we begin to feel smothered, stifled, strangled. We have no control, no ability to make sure that life will support us. Think about it, guys. If you believe that things must be done a certain way or certain rules must be followed in order for you to feel safe, and those things are just being chucked out the window and you're powerless to stop it, how is this going to feel to you? If you believe that your survival is dependent upon being respected, because how else will you be seen, provided for, and you no longer feel worthy of respect, what does this do to your state of mind? For many of us, this all feels exactly like not being able to breathe, which is why having difficulty breathing is often associated with panic attacks. We're going to add an additional piece here. Capricorn is also the sign of ambition and endurance and accomplishment. You pick a mountain to climb, knuckle down, and climb that sucker, no matter how hard it is or how long it takes. Humans thrive on challenge, setting a goal, keeping at it even when it's difficult, and accomplishing something that we set out to do is every bit as nourishing for us as being loved, more so even. It invigorates us, and it reaffirms our reason for being. Capricorn has been telling all of us for some time that if we are feeling depressed or adrift, it is very likely that we are not challenging ourselves in a meaningful way. If you perceive yourself as having all the time in the world, this continued internal needling might be annoying, but you can push it aside and just keep doing what you're doing. In your mind, you can always set a goal and meet it later. If, however, you are feeling enormous pressure to be doing something vitalizing, and yet at the same time you also believe that you can't, and you won't ever be able to, because you don't have enough years left, or because your body can't handle it, the internal war between the pressure of I should and the inertia destroying I can't is rapidly going to become positively oppressive. We can feel smothered by the relentless tirade of our own minds just as thoroughly as by external circumstances. If you already believe the traditions and values you hold dear are crumbling or being corrupted, and if you already feel that you've lost the respect and societal utility that you believe is vital for your well-being, the feeling that you should be doing something with yourself, combined with the perception that you're either physically unable to do so or are too old to do so, can be devastating. One feels as though things are never ever going to get better, and life gets smaller and smaller, and you begin to resonate with an illness that will stifle you. You already feel stifled. You already feel as though there is a lack of vitalizing force in your life, a lack of oxygen. 2, because breath separates us from death in a very real, immediate fashion. If we already feel as though we are in a living death, not being able to breathe is simply the body's way of representing this. When my grandmother was in her early 80s, she told my mother that she was ready to die, but she didn't know how. There was nothing new she wanted to learn, nothing else she wanted to see. She had already traveled the world. Her husband had passed away many years before, and neither my sister nor I were having children, so there was no new generation to mentor. Politics upset her. Much of our family, which was once living practically on top of each other, moved to different areas of the country. She was ready to move on, not long after she died of heart failure. It was a mercy. It freed her from a life in which she was no longer living. Many of those folks who have contracted the coronavirus have aligned with precisely what they feel they need to free them from an existence that has felt increasingly meaningless, oppressive, and empty. They're ready to go, and the virus is providing the vehicle. If you are an older individual who is not ready to go, however, and you can recognize yourself in the description I provided above, then you're being charged to do as Pluto demands and transform. Is this easy? Not in the least. But Capricorn doesn't trust things that come easily anyway. 2, one of Capricorn's finest qualities is ironclad willpower. So the strength that you need is there. Some things are going to change, and there is not a thing you can do about that. This is the nature of existence. If you look at how much humanity has changed in the course of recorded history, the changes that have occurred in your lifetime may be dramatic, but equally so were the changes that occurred in the wake of people learning to read and the invention of the telephone and the car. Change happens. Let God, the divine, the universe, whatever you'd like to call it, handle the masses. Shift your focus from what you believe is wrong with the way things are being done and focus instead on you and what you can actually control. You will also need to let go of any suffocating, soul-destroying beliefs about your worth. Just because you are older does not mean that you can no longer have any value. Just because you can't do the job you did for so many years anymore does not mean there is no longer any way for you to put your skills or wisdom to use. Just because you now need help with some things does not mean that no one trusts in the greatness of your spirit. It's time to start asking yourself, what do I have to offer independent of those things that I used to do but can do no longer? It's time to be creative. If you are still here, a part of you still believes that you have the time to do things differently, and there are a billion different ways you can still be relevant. More, if you're still conscious, you can still set goals for yourself. What have you always wanted to learn but have put off? What have you always wanted to do? Maybe you won't be able to do the real thing just now. Maybe you'll only be able to take steps in that direction. So perhaps you can't yet run a marathon, but you could walk around the block each day. Perhaps you can't travel abroad just now, but you could read books or watch movies about that place or connect via the internet to people native to those lands. You could order art supplies online and take an online painting course, watch Bob Ross's The Joy of Painting on Netflix, or just let your creativity run free and see what you come up with uninstructed. Honestly, what have you got to lose? One of the most fascinating things about this virus is that it doesn't seem to affect millennials or children. The reason's fairly simple. The majority of these individuals are not clinging to an old way of being or doing, but are delightedly riding the wave of change. They're more freedom and flexibility oriented. However, younger folks may still develop a moderate or mild case that feels a bit like a flu or cold. When we get the flu, this is our body's way of saying, I have hit critical mass. I cannot do whatever you are forcing me to do any freaking more. We are going to bed, whether you like it or not. The common cold is a similar message, but less severe. Usually, you are stressing me out by forcing me to do all the things or deal with all the people, and I need a break. Or, will you stop thinking about the same freaking thing over and over and just chill? Both of these ailments, cold and flu, are indicative of having hit a breaking point with a particular situation. And unsurprisingly, an increasing number of my clients have had some version of the following since early 2019. I just cannot do this job or situation of responsibility anymore. I didn't like it before, but now I cannot stand it. It is intolerable. I have got to find a way to get out, but there's no way. I'm stuck. There are no options. And if I did just quit, there's no safety net, no way I can be sure I'll be okay. So I'm just going to stay here in this utter hell, doing this stifling, empty work, and I'm just going to keep looking for some other safe option to which I can flee. Sound like any of you guys? If it doesn't, good on you. It probably was starting to feel this way for you, but you read the writing on the wall, knew this meant you needed to take a risk and leave the thing that made you feel like the Walking Dead, and you did it. For you, this whole time is just, you're just going to keep going with the flow, and you're just going to continue conscious self-development. Well done. The rest of you, you guys just dug in deeper. For the younger generation, for whom a resistance to global change is not such an overwhelming source of anger, and who tend to feel they have sufficient time for the fulfillment of ambitions, another Capricornian quality is running the show. The need to stop playing a role and be who we really are. The perception of time is really key here. Yes, you're presently in an unhappy situation, but you believe there's a way, even if you have no clue what that is, that things could change. So you feel stifled, and you may therefore develop the tight chest and mild breathing difficulty common to a cold or flu, but it's unlikely to become lethal pneumonia, which is what happens when we feel we are being absolutely, unrelentingly suffocated by our lives, our responsibilities, or the fear and judgment in our own minds. You don't need an exit strategy. You just need to get out from under some of the things that are demanding your time and energy, catch your breath, and then you can figure things out. Capricorn rules the 10th house, and along with our reputations, the focus of the 10th house is our career. However, our career has the potential to be more than just what we do to earn money. It can, if we are honoring our heart's guidance, be an extension of our destiny, of our reason for being here. After all, since most of us give the bulk of our time and energy to our jobs, shouldn't our job represent our true purpose here? If we're not honoring our heart and soul's imperatives, we end up giving the bulk of our life to something that our being perceives as meaningless. Logic may tell us that we're performing a great service. We might be a nurse, for example, or a teacher, or a scientist inventing cures for diseases just like COVID-19. We may actually be saving lives, but it doesn't feel meaningful for us. And so as much good as it looks like we're doing, this means that we could actually be doing so much more good someplace else. The greatest, most transformative thrust of Capricorn is learning how to let go of the trappings of an inauthentic role, the applause, the status, the power, the money, the control, or simply the alignment with the traditional values with which you were raised, and learn how to be real, to stop playing a part, and to be who and what you really are with every fiber of your being. The difference is enormous. To have money, power, status, and or acceptance for doing and being something that you are not is to live in an eternal cage, a slave to the expectations of others, or to the rules of the role. It's to have all of your work be an act of sacrifice. For this reason, your divine being will fight you every step of the way. It knows you weren't meant for this. Those of you who are just done with your present circumstances, who feel suffocated by them, are waging this exact inner battle. But imagine if you could really truly be you. If you could live in alignment with what you really believe and put your energy into actions that made you feel like you were accomplishing something of value to you. Imagine if you were being respected for something that really mattered to you. This is an entirely different ballgame. You wouldn't be stressing anymore about what decision to make or action to take to please the masses and maintain their respect, to remain safe. You'd just be you. One of my favorite astrologers, Stephen Forrest, says that Capricorn's mission is to be the same person on the outside that it is on the inside. No small task in the age of social media, with its endless temptation to package ourselves in the way we perceive most likely to garner us approval. And equally, no small matter when the person we pretend to be is the one who makes the money and garners respect and approval. How wonderful, then, that the universe doesn't care how afraid we are to change. Whether we like it or not, it is going to push us in that direction for our own good, making us increasingly uncomfortable until the things that we are afraid will happen if we take a leap on something meaningful are less threatening than the notion of remaining in our stifling situation 1 second more. The genuine respect and status that Capricorn craves is found only in honoring its destiny, and so most often it is in making a career of what really fires it up. It may not seem practical, and it sure as hell may not be anything resembling what the authority figures in your life wanted for you, but it's where you were meant to shine. And though there is inevitably a terror that when we abandon the practical or safe choice and choose instead to do what makes us feel alive, that we'll wind up destitute, this isn't what happens. Unless you're intended to experience a time of poverty for the sake of your growth, in which case you won't be able to avoid it anyway. Rather, when we do what we are meant to do, the universe finds all kinds of ways to support us, some expected, some not. I could tell you guys at least a dozen stories of how every time I've let go and taken a huge risk, the universe has jumped in to support me in exactly the right way. Some of those ways expected, some really shocking. So, great, you've accepted that you're miserable, that your job or some other significant part of your life is suffocating you, and you'd like to change. But change to what? To determine what to do with ourselves and to deal with our limiting beliefs sufficiently to begin moving in that direction, we need something extremely Capricornian: solitude, isolation. It is often only when the pressure is off and we are all by ourselves that we can reconnect with the internal imperatives that point us in the direction of our destinies. We need space in our being to allow these things to arise, something we don't have when we are running from thing to thing so fast we can't catch our breath. And we need to be able to think about them without other people telling us we are foolish. This is why, for most of us, when we have to make the leap from safe slavery to destiny, we just have to quit the darn job and have faith that the next step will appear. We need the space and the silence. But look what the coronavirus has created for us. Space, silence, a break from the suffocation. Even for those of us still working online, we no longer have a commute. Time is no longer being spent at bars or restaurants or theaters. We can get more sleep. If we can resist the attempt to spend all day on social media, we can ponder what changes would be meaningful to us without the pressure of others' opinions. It's huge. And then, when we all emerge from isolation, it will be with new understandings, new imperatives. For many of you, the job that you were doing before all the closures is not even remotely the same one you're going to do afterwards. I'm going to leave you guys with one last tidbit of Capricornian wisdom. In the tarot, the card that represents Capricorn is the devil. If you look at the classic Rider-Waite image, it features a man and a woman standing before the devil, and each has a rope around his or her neck. But the ropes are loose. Loose enough, in fact, that were they so minded, they could tell the devil to go screw himself, fling off the noose, and be on their merry way. For this reason, the devil often signifies that the only force keeping us stuck is our own fear. The devil in our mind that haunts us, that tells us we are prisoners in some way, but which actually has no power whatsoever. Rather than take a risk, we stick with the devil we know, and so we remain right where we are, victim to no one but ourselves. It's time to take the noose off, my darlings. It is time to breathe again. If you haven't already been doing so, it's time to reconnect with what would truly make you feel alive. Face the fears that have been preventing you from doing it, and start moving forward. You're being given this time of relative quiet to do just that. All is well, even if it doesn't look that way. All is going precisely according to divine plan. We're going to go through these times in spectacular fashion, and more awesomeness than we can possibly imagine is in our future. Hang in there, guys. Everything's going to be okay. Love you all to bits and pieces, and I'm sure I'll see you all again soon.